and welcome to Fairy Tales and French Knots. I'm Erin, and this is my channel about cross-stitch, where I talk long enough to make my family wonder what I'm up to, but short enough that you can probably watch this on your lunch break. If you're new here, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what I've put together. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back, and thank you for coming back after like 2 months of no videos. It's just been a busy summer around here. I think the last video I did was after StitchCon, which was in mid-June because I was at Weekend A. So I've been away a bit, but I have got some things to show you. I've had quite a bit of creative juices going. I've been working on some other crafts as well as stitching, and at the end of the video, I will show you, I know you want to see, the pattern that I designed, stitched, and fully finished, and actually now have in a little tiny Etsy shop. So if you stick around till the end, you can see what I've designed, and maybe you want to stitch it too. Let me say, full stop, not a designer, not making any money off of this, really just having fun and had an idea. So anyway, let's back up and talk about what I've been working on. First of all of my crate finishing. I know a couple months ago I showed the cranberry crate that I added the lining to. Then I showed my little cheese crate that I oiled and lined and put little bobbly feet on. Then I saw somebody on, I think it was Instagram, posted their animal crackers, the Stacy Nash stitched pieces, in a cheese box. Because, really, crackers, cheese, perfect. So I'm wondering if I found more of these and finished them in different ways, if I could actually sell these in my Etsy shop too. I don't know, we'll see. I only have one right now, so I don't know. But that was the cheese crate. I also had a baker's chocolate crate, which I guess they're kind of a collector's item. I didn't realize this. I got it from an auction that our local antique store runs weekly. They have like an online auction. So I got this crate. It's a, like I said, baker's chocolate for 10 or 15 bucks. And the baker's chocolate is the one that has the lady holding the tray of chocolates. And I know there are half dolls that are designed with her on them. So here's the other side. This end has, I can't see it in this light, just has words on it. Tells you the made by information here. And this crate has definitely seen some use. You can tell like somebody glued the joints back together and just, it was kind of beat. So I, first of all, reinforced the bottom and actually had to reline up the sides. The sides had started to crack, so I fixed that. Then I lined it with this pretty, I think it's, the fabric was called Orphan Train. So I lined it with that, and then the bottom, it's an old bed sheet with some twisted cording to just hide the seams and joints. And then I added little feet to this as well. And those are screws that go right through the bottom into the reinforced, because I reinforced the bottom as well, so they're not going anywhere. I did take my Dremel and smooth them so they won't scratch if you put them on anything. So there's crate number 2. So because I hang out at the antique stores, the last time I was in there, I was talking to the clerk about these projects and the fact that I like to find things and either, refinish the insides or attach stitching to jewelry boxes and things other than frames. And she actually suggested that I get a rack at the store and possibly try selling. And I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know if there's a market. I know there wasn't a market at the craft fairs. So maybe the antique store would get some of this stuff out of my house. And it's not that I don't love the things I make. It's just that I've been stitching for 30 years and I've made a lot of stuff. And the things, especially the things that aren't framed, I used to think, by not framing them, I'm saving money, which is true. But then I have all these little things that sit everywhere and I'm running out of shelf space. I actually have more wall space for framing than other space. So I don't know. I'm thinking about it and how it might work, how much stuff I'd have to take, what the cost would be to, pay for the space itself. I'd have to do my homework, but we'll see. So those two things got finished. All the cheese crate was done before. I also finished Twilight Moon by Tiny Modernist, framed in a frame from the antique store, which really is, it's just the perfect frame. I mean, there's the blue flower and the blue flower here, and the vine and the vine here, and the vine and the moon. It's so cute. And this was a mirror, actually. So it didn't have a back to it. It just, the mirror was just like super glued into this hole. So when I put it together, I made a back out of a piece of mat board just to hide the laced back of my stitching. But that came out super cute. So I got that done. I also, I finished this, this was a tiny little kit that I picked up at StitchCon. It had a bee on the stitching. I did not want to stitch a bee. I wanted to stitch a flower. So I stitched a flower. And then I made a little beaded doodad to go with it. And if you're wondering why the colors are what they are, I have a friend who is trans. And every so often, they have problems. Just, needing help and needing support and being in bad mental, emotional space. And when that happens, if I can't help, which I often can't, and they know this, and therefore they tell me to stay away because they know I'm a fixer, I start making. So this is what I made. And that is why it evokes LGBTQ trans colors. It felt like the right thing to do. It could be an ornament, it could be a bag tag, it could be a keychain, it can just be. So I made that. I also finished, one of the pieces I picked up at StitchCon, which is Turn Off the Oven from Lucy Beam. This was a full kit, so it came with the little paddle and the ribbon, and there's actually some antique dictionary paper behind the perforated paper. So that is completely finished. I did add the little bead in the top of the bow because I'm extra and I do those things. I also glued some old rare earth magnets to the back. Maybe a few too many, I don't know. I had these left over from making needle minders, and they're too small for needle minders because they're teeny tiny little magnets. So I figured glue them all on the back of here and slap it on the fridge. So now it sticks to the fridge. Perfect. Done. I also, in terms of things I just had to make, when Marissa over at MKissa Designs was doing her Stitch Your Collection stitch along, I decided to do Lord of the Rings. And I got as far as starting Cottage Garden Samplings, Hobbit House from the Fantastic Houses series. And that was as far as I got. I made a project bag for that with some cool fabric that had mushrooms and things. But I also had this fabric left over from a quilt. So I made another bag. Because who doesn't need more project bags? And this had been sitting in a pile. And that's part of what I started working on these past couple months, was this pile of things that had been waiting for me to do something with them. And finally I said, you know what? Do the thing or throw the things away. And throwing away craft projects is not something that's easy to do. So I did a bunch of things, and that's where this came from, as well as finishing the little keychain, all of that. The other thing I fully finished, and I think I showed this, but I can't remember. So this is a little tiny design. I will try to remember where I found it and link the Etsy shop for you. It's a little tiny book house. And this is an old carriage clock. The opening is maybe 3 inches in diameter. It's very, very small. So what I did, I took the clock out, and obviously, and then I decoupaged the edge with things about books. And it was a challenge because I just grabbed some free books from our used bookstore's freebie rack and started looking for things that were about books or libraries or reading or something. So I got the chapter 1 was kind of a gimme, but you know, little words like he led her into the library, bookshelves went to the ceiling, the library by evening light, Mallory's enchanting book. It was Moxon's edition of Tennyson. He saw a dark green book. And I spent way too long looking page by page, sentence by sentence through some really terrible books. I mean, they were free for a reason, people. So yes, that's all around the outside of the frame, and then stitching in the middle. And then these are tiny, tiny, like dollhouse sized books. And I love this. It's like my new favorite thing right now. And that was the one actually that I showed to the clerk at the antique store, who said, oh, you could sell that. And I'm like, but no, we are not selling that. So that got finished. I also finally got around to those pieces that I'd picked up at the antique store that were in the blue frames. I think I showed them a couple episodes ago. They were 2 patterns of like little birdhouses and fences. I think they are either Bent Creek or Lizzie Kate. And they had been framed in these giant blue frames with tons of puffy padding and no glass. So they were dirty and they were kind of gross. And I decided that I would make them into flat folds. Well, the first one I washed. I should not have washed because it was over-dyed flosses. It bled terribly. And it was weird because it wasn't even the reds that bled. It was actually like, I think it was like the grays and browns that just turned into mud, and they looked so bad. I ended up cutting the beads off and throwing it away. But this one I finished. And I think it looks so much cuter as a flat fold. So it's got this red trim, which pulls the house colors. It's got a blue lining, and then the back is these flowers. So this is now sitting on my table by the front door, and it's just cute. I hope the previous stitcher, who did not put her name or initials or anything on this, I hope she approves. So I got that done. In terms of my own stitching that I've been working on, my whips, I worked on Father Christmas's Village from Cosford Rise. So here's that. I've got down to the bottom of the border, and I did that for a reason, because the color of the border is repeated up here. I think there's another building that uses the same color, and I'm not sure that I have enough. So I figure if I get all of the border done, if I need to swap or do a mix and match with the building up in the top, it'll be less noticeable. But if my border were to change color, it would look weird. So there's that. I got the border there, and I did work on some of this flower, I think. And I think that's about it. It's hard to say. Worked on that. I did work on my Secret Sky from Modern Folk Embroidery, but that is currently wrapped up and put away, so I can't show that one. The other thing I was working on was my Marbeck Seaside Angel, and I had every intention of getting this done and framed for my county fair. I did not, obviously. A couple of years ago, I entered a drum in the county fair because I thought, it'd be fun to enter something other than a framed piece. Everybody sees framed pieces of cross stitch and goes, oh, my grandmother did crowned cross stitch and blah, 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 blah. So I thought I'd show them something different. And wouldn't you know, I did get a blue ribbon. I was the only entry in the category for cross stitch. And there is only one category for cross stitch. It's not like samplers or smalls or, I've seen other people's county and state fairs have different designations for either sizes of pieces or techniques. For us, it's cross stitch. Whether it's teeny tiny thing or gigantic thing, it's all cross stitch. So it's hard to decide what to enter because you feel like whatever you enter is up against everything else. And like a very small thing that was very hard to do ends up against a giant sampler that's nothing but X's and had no assembly involved. So I get really torn about it. But anyway, the year that I won with my little drum, which was a primitive hair piece, finished at it was about the size of a cookie jar. So it was about 6 inches high, probably 6 inches in diameter too. The woman, the nice ladies who were working at the arts and crafts barn said, well, we used to have someone who did all those pretty ladies with beads. Oh, we miss her. I'm like, fine. You want mirrors? I give you mirrors. I haven't yet. And I've been working on my Marbeck Seaside Angel with every intent of entering it in the fair eventually. So when it is done, the skirt goes from probably past here to past here when you get down to the bottom. And it's huge. So it's going to take me some time to finish. And I always say, oh yeah, I'll work on it for a while. And it feels like I've worked on it and I'm not getting it any closer to done. So I know that's not true. Every piece of floss you put in is a piece of floss that's done. So I keep working on it and we'll see. But this is Seaside Angel by Marbeck. And I've obviously not used the fabric from the pattern. This is a hand-dyed fabric from Sunny Dyes that is called Sky, Sea, and Sand. And my intention is to make it look like, obviously, she's walking on the beach. I'm leaving off her halo and her wings. So rather than be an angel, she will just be a woman walking on the beach who is completely overdressed for such an activity. Perfect. But yes, her sleeve. So all of this is sleeve because this is her hand. Her other arm comes out here and holds a shell right about here, I think. But all of that is blended floss. It's a green and a blue. And I don't like blended floss, which is dumb. It's just stitching with 2 strands. But for some reason, like one of them will shred before the other, or it's just annoying. And trying to get it to lie right, you got to railroad all the time. But it'll be beautiful when it's done. She's so pretty. So that is my Seaside Angel. And now, let's talk about what I designed. I will say that I was inspired by Michelle over at Cozy Egg Designs. Go Michelle, go look at her things because she is a designer who does beautiful things. And she has done a tombstone of Mark Twain's daughters, a replica of that. She's also done one with a verse from Percy Bysshe Shelley. They are beautiful. I've stitched both of them. I think I've shown them here. But I was inspired by her and a bunch of you other crazy stitchers out there to start a tombstone wall. And I have other tombstones by other designers. I have tombstone spots by Primitive Hair. I have a couple Carriage House Samplings tombstones. I've got, I think there's a couple others that I've found on Etsy that I liked. But I wanted my own. I wanted something that I did. So I went looking for tombstone verses that I liked. And the one I found in a Facebook group, of course, of like, weird and fascinating tombstones, or, tombstones around the world. I don't even know. But it was the tombstone of a woman named Elise Seeley, who died in 1999. And the verse on her tombstone was, "We are all wanderers on this earth, our hearts full of silver song, our pockets deep with dreams." And I just loved the verse. I also was really taken by the fact that this woman lived from 1901 to 1999, and that was evidently her theory of life, her attitude toward living. And from what I could learn reading her obituary and doing a little bit more digging, she was an art teacher. Doesn't look like she ever had children. She looked like someone I would have loved to have met. So I kind of felt like, especially since she was an art teacher, to take her epitaph and turn it into a piece of needlework just seemed completely appropriate. And the other thing I did, because her tombstone was essentially a flat marble piece, it had no ornamentation on it, I went looking for traditional New England tombstone imagery. And I learned a lot. I mean, it was a great rabbit hole to go down. I learned about the different schools of carving and how it changed over time as it went from like no face to just a face to a full skeleton to, taking on either more or less religious aspects and all kinds of fascinating stuff. So if you're ever into learning about tombstone imagery, definitely go for it. There's lots and lots of resources out there. But yes, I ended up with a design that I liked that was from, I believe it was the Merrimack Valley School of Carving. And it uses a lot of like swirls and starbursts and one face in the center. So here is my design. And it is currently in this old jewelry box, also purchased at the antique store. And I set it up like a shadow box. And I used magnets to hold it together, so I can take the lid right off. Put it over there and show you the piece without glass. So this is on a 40 count fabric I had in my stash, using an anchor thread that I had in my stash. The only thing I did differently that I did not include in my pattern instructions is I stitched Silver Song with a blend that had Kreinik in it. I don't know that I'd recommend that. If you don't like Kreinik, don't do it. I like the way it turned out, but this is a 40 count, so it was stitched 1/2 on 40 count. And yeah, I think it came out really cool. I'll link my Etsy shop, and if you want to stitch it, please do. And, let me see a picture. I didn't put any called for fabrics or flosses because it's up to you. And in fact, I think that Elise would appreciate that as an art teacher. Pick your favorite floss, pick some crazy fabric, make it yours. That's what's fun about our hobby. And I just wanted to add a little bit of myself and throw it out there on Etsy and see what happened. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. And I hope that you like what you saw and you'll come back later. And if you purchase my pattern and stitch it, please let me know how you like it. I'll see you later, and keep making cool stuff and being awesome people.